Hey everyone, what's up? You're back. I hope you all have a great day. XRP, what I'm going to tell you about it, has been kept secret from most people. It's been talked about quietly between your central banks and denied for years. But that's over now. XRP's age of being used by institutions isn't coming after everything we talk about here and everything that is happening with XRP and on Wall Street today. It's already started. And if you miss the next 10 to 15 minutes, you won't ever get how deep this really goes. If you really want to get ahead of the next big money change, the XRP Insiders Elite program is the best way to do it. Exclusive alerts, top-tier XRP insights, frameworks for a millionaire mindset, and full access to all premium tools. It has a lot of power. Use code millionaire for 10% off. The link is in the video description. Let's get to it. Now, once you hear this, everything about XRP's present moment will start to make sense. We got this account, Lord Belgrave, and he started a thread that sounds like tinfoil, but as you go deeper into it, you see that the links aren't hypothetical anymore. They're real. I want you to think hard about whether or not they are working with Ripple as I go through each name. That one question makes this story go from interesting to obvious. He says he was in a consultant room in the Bank of England's Threadneedle Street complex in 2019. That kind of room where the clock is too loud. The chairs feel like they were put there by someone who studies how people act. And the vibe makes you think this isn't a talk for the store to hear. On the other side of the table were Ripple's institutional strategy team, Deutsche Bank, BNP Paribas, Santander, Barclays, and a policy advisor from the ECB. This was the type of meeting that changes world systems many years before the public knows about it. Someone passes a private information pack across the table. It had a proposal inside that looked like a description of a future financial system that had already been created. Ripple wanted to create a euro-backed stablecoin designed for business settlement instead of a retail token or some sort of discount stablecoin, a fully collateralized settlement tool that can be programmed and must be visible to the central bank, a digital euro that is meant to work directly with European financial systems and connect with the XRP record as the base for settling transactions. As soon as the idea arrived, the mood in the room shifted. Right away, Deutsche Bank's treasury team started working on models for liquidity reduction. Barclays started to break down daily funding cycles because a settlement tool like this one lowers the problems they've had for a long time. What about BNP Paribas? They knew they could relax a lot of stress from having expensive nostro situations. And importantly, the ECB official was already planning how this would work with Target 2 and future CBDC systems. The numbers were off the charts. Lessened risk of partner failure, lowered capital drag. You don't have to do much to keep it running in the moment. Matching across banks that work together, a single agreement across Europe. Faster liquidity recycling means that the process of converting assets into cash and then using that cash to buy more assets happens more quickly, a method that is cleaner, safer, and can be fully audited. Then the ECB expert said something that made everyone go, OMG, if a euro-backed digital tool follows the rules for supervision, it will be Europe's main way of settling transactions. Not because the government makes them, but because it's the best way to do it. Europe revealed their true intentions right then and there. They already knew the future of the world. Ripple, on the other hand, was sure of it. This wasn't about guessing. It was about laying the groundwork for a future banking system in which settlements are instant, global, and automatic. And today, for the first time, Wall Street is finally realizing the same thing. That leads us to one of the biggest things that has ever happened to XRP, and story called the $2.3 trillion liquidity shock was posted on xrpo.com. And in that report, Franklin Templeton, an asset manager worth $1.5 trillion, included a small but earth-shaking comment as the systems for institutions get better. Up to $2.3 trillion in global cash is getting ready to move into digital assets. But here's the big news. They put XRP, Bitcoin, and Ethereum on the list of top projects that would get money or other benefits. It has never happened. For years, XRP has not been a part of the world of standard investments, not exchange-rated funds, not in accounts for retirement, not in goods made by institutions up to this point. Now that there are XRP ETFs, that institutional rails are working, that there is compliance clarity after 2023, and that settlement utility has been proven, Wall Street allocators who can move billions with a single phone call are finally seeing XRP as a real settlement asset. They know for sure. They aren't taking a chance. They are giving credit to the infrastructure that has been built while others were fighting on Twitter. Now, this is the point where things become even more fun. Franklin Templeton said in a recent interview that they have been working with Ripple for a long time. Not in the US at first because of the delays in the case, but in Asia. They have been working together in silence, testing, merging, and getting ready. And now that things are clearer in the US, that work is spreading around the world. One of the world's biggest asset managers is admitting that they were behind closed doors with Ripple for years under NDA. And keep in mind that more than 1,700 NDAs came to light in the Ripple versus SEC court case. We don't know the owners of all of them. What about Franklin Templeton, though? We now have what we need. And this is where it goes from interesting to something that can't be denied. The next study, Wisdom Tree's institutional inflow analysis, shows a trend that people who work for the company have known about for years. In every major part of the world, there is steady demand for XRP from businesses. This year, Europe received more than $549 million in XRP, more than any currency other than Bitcoin, and 3 times as much as Ethereum. XRP made $252 million outside of the US. Bitcoin, with products 25 times bigger than XRP's, made just a bit more. That means that compared to its size, XRP received a lot more cash. In the US, when Bitcoin and Ethereum lost billions of dollars over the course of a month, XRP, worth over $241 million, was bought up by companies. They weren't interested in the hype. Upon only candles were not bought by them. They bought when things were stressful and unsure. That's exactly how the wealthy get their money. And this is happening all over the world. Europe, Asia, and other markets in the US are all buying now. No guessing, just certainty from organizations that know what settlement assets look like well before the general public does. And the waters aren't even all the way open yet. This is the part that most people don't get. The floods are real, not just a theory. They are already opening with a creek. In some cases, they are completely open. In just the last week, Vanguard, Bank of America, and Charles Schwab, each worth over $3 trillion, have changed their positions on crypto, which were negative for years. And they didn't take their time. They made a lot of noise when they did it. They all did it at the same time, which means that someone somewhere finally gave the okay. Vanguard, which manages 11 trillion, said they are opening access to crypto ETFs for about 50 million clients. That is one of the biggest retail and advice pipelines in the world that has just started to gain exposure to digital assets. And this is even more important. When Vanguard opens the door, all of the conservative financial advisors who follow their rules get pulled along with them whether they wanted to or not. Bank of America went even further. It manages $1.8 trillion. They're doing more than just letting people see. They are strongly suggesting that their clients look into a 4% crypto investment. That's really big. Traditional banks will rarely suggest new asset classes to their clients unless there are clear signs that they should do so, or else face the consequences. That's not a small change when 4% of hundreds of billions of dollars in client accounts is reallocated. It's a huge change. Direct crypto sales will be possible starting in January through Charles Schwab, which has 12 trillion in assets. Schwab has been careful about digital assets in the past. Even writing them off is unimportant. So when an organization this big makes a sudden change, it shows that the choice wasn't based on feelings, but on the way things are set up. The rails, the legal clarity, the custody, the institutions that were willing to work with us, everything finally came together. This isn't the kind of retail acceptance you're looking for. This isn't a guess. This is the world's largest banking institution giving in to an inevitable future. And when trillions of dollars in passive capital go into a new asset class, it doesn't slowly join with little notice. It floods all at once very quickly. People don't usually get this, but the big picture is about to make everything a lot worse. Jerome Powell spoke today about something that might seem boring, but will have a big effect. He said that the Federal Reserve will finally have to add reserves back into the system. That's quantitative easing in simpler terms. More cash that can be used right away. New cash, the exact fuel that makes risk assets go up in flames. But this is the important part. When new money joins the system, it doesn't go to all assets the same way. It moves to the assets that are legal, easy to get to, and part of the system already used by institutions. Bitcoin always moves first, and this time will be no different. Ethereum will do the same thing. But service assets, things that people actually want and need, will be affected much more strongly. XRP is the best of that kind of thing. But once more, this is all confusing if you don't get Ripple's last move, the move they've been getting ready to make ever since the lawsuit finished. And story called Sell XRP If You Are Confused was posted on xrpo.com. That sounds threatening, doesn't it? But the message wasn't focused on the cost or excitement. Ripple is quietly building a digital asset empire while retail buyers argue with each other. G Treasury, Prime, Ripple, Railway, Palisade. Each of these things is part of a bigger picture. Ripple isn't trying to be a company that makes wallets. They don't want to be a transfer business. They are building the full vertical university stack. Payments, custody, on-demand settlement, compliance frameworks, liquidity management, automated treasury systems, and the last lines that big organizations need to use at scale are all part of this system. Only G Treasury connects business treasury networks to the XRP ecosystem. These people are not small time. These aren't crypto companies. Every day they move billions of dollars across borders, different types of property, in different parts of the company. They are that type of business. When they make a decision, they need to be sure that it is permanent. They need to be fast. When they move value, They need to be able to rely on things when they adjust. XRP is the only asset that was designed to do that on a world scale. 10 different venues are not wanted by institutions. They want a single system that can be used for all parts of their operations. Ripple is the one making that. And this is exactly how every big financial moment has gone: unification, institutional acceptance, and consolidation. But this time, the payment layer isn't even close to Swift. It's not about Nostro-Vostro connections. It's not the kind of pre-funded cash that just sits there and does nothing on balance sheets. This is the XRP record. XRP is already intended to be the settlement layer that connects different financial systems by instantly completing payments, reducing friction, compressing liquidity, and moving value globally in real time. Bitcoin can't do that again. Ethereum can't do that again, and none of the top 20 are even close. But this is where retail sellers make mistakes. They think nothing is going on when they look at the daily price chart. They see red candles and days as well as instability and pullbacks. At the same time, the architecture that is being built under the surface is going through more rapid development than ever before in XRP's past. Price reflects how people feel, but usefulness reflects what's available for buildings and other structures, and it always comes out on top. When the organizations see it, they aren't keeping a close eye on the price. They aren't worried about short-term drops. They're building the next system for the world economy, and they're working with the parts they know will still be here in 10 years. XRP is not a meme asset. It is a business asset that has been masquerading as a retail token for 10 years because the rules weren't clear. But clarity has come. I'm not telling you what to do with your money. Now, we are getting to the part that uses all of the things we have talked about: the unified settlement design, the institutional change, and the liquidity shock make everything very clear. The biggest banks and payment processors have already made their choices about XRP, but regular investors are still trying to figure out if it is dead or living. The plan is now a fact, not a theory. The puzzle pieces are all in one place now. One at a time, they are being locked into place by the same people who built the system that controls your finances. Now, the truth is that Ripple's long-term plan was not based on retail gambling. There were never price charts, hype cycles, or stories about bull runs involved. Ripple has always placed themselves at the center of the world's banking system: central banks, payment networks, liquidity hubs, treasury management systems, and the rules that oversee all of them. And right now, all of those long-term relationships are coming together at the same time. You can see the design right away when you zoom out. Look at the non-disclosure agreements that came to light in the Ripple versus SEC court case. We know that more than 1,700 business and institutional NDAs were connected to Ripple. Most people never really understood how big that number is. They weren't non-disclosure agreements with little companies. Those were NDAs with groups like banks, asset managers, fintech platforms, technology partners, government agencies, and corporate networks. Just by looking at it, you can tell what kind of system Ripple was secretly building before anyone outside the company knew about it. And that fits exactly with what Franklin Templeton showed. They claim to have worked with Ripple in Asia for a long time. Think about how crazy that is. Ripple had a relationship with one of the largest asset managers in the world, quietly working on real-world applications in a number of areas with no one knowing. That's exactly what those NDAs were meant to do. Now these connections that were hidden before are coming to light one by one, as if a switch was flipped and someone decided the world was finally ready for the truth. Then you read Wisdom Tree's alarming report. It wasn't just strong when XRP entered institutions. They were uniform all over the world and counter-cyclical. XRP was the only thing that institutions weren't selling. And in every big region, Europe, markets outside the US, and now the US, you can see the same build-up pattern. That's not the sale of goods. That's not a feeling. That's finance desks, wealth managers, and money allocators putting themselves into an asset that they think will be very important for the infrastructure of settlements. It's impossible to go back after you've seen the trend. XRP is receiving a lot of money from Europe's conservative financial industry. Ripple has been working with partners in Asia for many years. US organizations are finally getting the story, the usefulness, and the clarity in the rules. This connection isn't random. It happens because the basic structure is finally ready for use by large organizations. And those organizations see the writing on the wall long before individual buyers do. But that's only the beginning. The big change happens when you see that Ripple's buys were not just one-off business moves. They were all parts of one machine. Corporate treasury payments are handled by G Treasury. Ripple Prime does all the work for big crypto. Rail is used for payments in digital assets and cash. Palisade takes care of the security and legal layers. When you put them together, they look a lot less like a crypto company and a lot more like a full system for managing all aspects of digital currency. This is what organizations wanted, not division and not a bunch of tools. They needed a single platform that could handle all of these things at once: liquidity, Settlement, custody, compliance, and treasury. That's exactly what Ripple made. Now that the system is in place, institutions are queuing up because they know it's the future of world settlement. XRP is used as a neutral settlement asset and customizable value movement that happens in real time. That's why money is coming in. This is the reason ETFs are getting the go ahead. That's why the talk about regulations has changed from asking if XRP is an investment to how can we use XRP to grow institutional settlement. So banks, the asset managers, and company treasuries are working behind the scenes while regular people talk about price changes on social media. And that's why the story is changing. XRP has never before had the same accessibility as Bitcoin and Ethereum, as well as ETFs, institutional rails, and custody links. The difference is that XRP also has utility dominance, which these other cryptocurrencies lack. XRP isn't a crypto that acts like it has a purpose to make money. Now, speculative access is built on top of it, making it a population engine. That is a whole different system. It's not what the market is used to. And that is why the age of XRP as an institution looks so different from all the previous ones. Let's put it all together now. In the next few years, trillions of dollars in cash assets will move out of outdated systems for settling transactions and into more efficient ones. That shift won't be based on excitement. It won't be based on guesswork. It will be built on regulatory alignment, real-time settlement, operating efficiency, liquidity compression, and lower costs. The organizations that act first will have the upper hand. The places that don't pay attention to the change will be out of date. And XRP is at the heart of the scheme they're all drawn to. This is why when it happens is important. This is the reason why things are happening now. And that's why you see the preparations being finished before what looks like the largest move of cash from one place to another in recent financial history. Looking at the numbers is not enough to grasp how important this moment is. But people who know about infrastructure, utility, and bureaucratic behavior know exactly what's going on right now. If you have been here long enough to see this change, you aren't here by chance. You are early because you listened when no one else did. If you're still listening, here's something important before I end the movie. This is where people who want to get ahead of the next step really stand out from the rest. If you really want to get ahead of the next big change in the economy, you should join the XRP Insiders Elite program. It's made for people who want a more pronounced edge. Private intelligence reports for XRP, detailed explanations of advanced strategies and mindset frameworks that are made to help you think and act like people who build wealth that is passed down through generations rather than chasing trends.